I think Denver's the second best team in the West, in my opinion. I really like Cam Johnson going there. Jamal Murray, he's on fire right now. The Joker, man, this guy is so great. He's had like 3 triple-doubles in a row, and we just kind of like...
The Denver Nuggets have lost 10 games this season by 3 points or less.
Jokic to Gordon.
And a 360 spin.
37% of their entire loss column gone by a single possession or less. Now, before I get into what this actually means, I want to be upfront about something.
Denver has a man who is playing at the absolute peak of his powers, and so nothing can be taken away from him. And Denver has the number 2 defense in the league. Look out.
I'm not here to tell you Denver is playing their best basketball right now, because they're not. The defense is still inconsistent. They let teams hang around way longer than they should. They were down double digits against Golden State before halftime. The wins are coming, but nobody's looking at this team right now and thinking they've fully figured it out. But what I'm going to show you is that the signs are there. The form is building. And when you actually dig into what this season has looked like, the schedule they were handed, the injuries they absorbed, the games they lost by a hair, the picture that emerges is completely different from the one the standings have been telling us. Because the record is a lie, and the real Denver Nuggets are only just starting to show up. Let's go back to the start of the season, because this is important context that's been completely buried under the injury narrative. Denver opened the year 20-6, the best start in franchise history. They had top 5 rankings in both offense and defense at the same time. This was a team that looked like it could genuinely challenge for the top seed in the Western Conference. And then the injury bug hit them harder than almost any team in the league. Aaron Gordon went down with a hamstring strain and ended up missing 43 of the team's first 75 games. Nikola Jokic missed roughly a month with a hyperextended left knee and bone bruise. Peyton Watson missed 19 consecutive games with a hamstring issue of his own. At various points, Cam Johnson and Christian Braun were also out. David Adelman, in his first year as head coach, was basically doing roster Tetris every single week just to try to field a competitive lineup. The result was a 22-22 stretch that wiped out most of that early momentum. And fair enough, that's a brutal run by any measure. But the question you have to ask is, what did that stretch actually look like? Because I'd argue it looked a lot like a short-handed team grinding through the toughest schedule in the NBA. Here's the part that doesn't get enough attention. Going into the season, Denver had 16 back-to-back games scheduled, tied for the most in the entire league, alongside Philly, Phoenix, Charlotte, and Washington. The league average when the schedule dropped was 14.4. And then, due to rescheduling games throughout the year, Denver has already played 17 back-to-backs, the most of any team in the NBA. For some context, both the Lakers and OKC have only played 12 back-to-backs so far this season. While dealing with Jokic out for a month, Gordon missing the majority of the season, Watson gone for almost 6 weeks, their record in those back-to-backs, 11-6. That's a team that was holding itself together under conditions that would have buried a lot of franchises. So when someone tells you Denver had an inconsistent, disappointing season, the full picture is they had the most grueling schedule in the league, a laundry list of injuries to their core rotation, and they're still sitting in 4th place in the Western Conference. That's the complete story. Now, let's talk about the close losses, because this is where it gets genuinely interesting. 10 games lost by 3 points or less. I want to focus on 2 of them specifically, because these are the ones that tell you the most about what this team could have been. March 9th, Oklahoma City. On the road against the number 1 seed in the West, Denver lost by 3, and this is the week before the roster gets fully healthy. they're still patching things together, and they go to OKC and come within a possession of beating them away from home. March 14th, against the Lakers. Overtime. Last second shot. Denver loses by 2. The players themselves said afterwards that one felt like it slipped away. They had control of the game and let it go in the final minutes. That's the kind of loss that sticks with a team. But it's also the kind of loss that happens when your rotation has been shuffled around for 4 straight months and the cohesion just isn't quite there yet. If Denver wins those 2 games alone, they're in 3rd place in the West with 5-0 plus wins already. Win 5 of those 10 close ones, and you're probably looking at a 53-55 win team fighting for the top 1 or 2 seed in the West. The entire "can Denver compete" conversation disappears. They were never as bad as the record suggested during that stretch. They were a roster held together by tape, playing the hardest schedule in the league, and losing winnable games by a hair. So, what does the team look like now that everyone's coming back? Let's be honest, they aren't winning every game convincingly, and nobody should pretend otherwise. The win over Utah on March 27th, Denver was down 13 points in the 4th quarter against a team that is actively trying to lose. They came back and won 135-129, but they had no business being in that situation. Jokic after the game didn't sugarcoat it. We didn't play any defense. Layup after layup. That's a team that can still switch off for chunks of a game and rely on offensive output to bail them out. The Warriors game. Denver was down double digits before halftime. Golden State was outplaying them in the first half, and then the second half happened. They outscored the Warriors by 30 and won 116-93. But let's not rewrite that game as a dominant performance from tip-off. They needed a halftime reset to find the level that their talent suggests they should be playing at. The defense still needs genuine work and consistent effort. Saturday's game against the Spurs is going to be a real test. San Antonio is not Utah or Golden State. If Denver goes out there and plays the kind of porous defense they showed against the Jazz, that's a real concern heading into April. But if they can tighten things up against the Spurs, who have been arguably the best team in the league this year, that tells you the switch is starting to get flipped. Because here's what makes this interesting. The wins are coming. And even when the performances aren't clean, even when they're trailing at halftime or giving up too many layups in the paint, they're finding ways to win basketball games. And that matters in March. Winning ugly still builds habits, still builds confidence, still builds the kind of belief in a group that you need going into the postseason. Now, let's talk about what Jokic has actually been doing during this run, because this is the part of the Denver story that I think deserves more attention than it's getting. Jokic is averaging 24.7 points, 15 rebounds, and 13.2 assists on 57.3% from the field, including 4 triple-doubles. Let me walk you through the highlights. March 24th in Phoenix, 23 points, 17 rebounds, 17 assists on the road. With 11 seconds left, score tied, Jokic makes the floater, and they win 125-123. That's a player who simply does not feel pressure the way other people do. Against Dallas, Jokic went for 23 points, 21 rebounds, and 19 assists. And alongside him, Jamal Murray dropped 53 points on 19 of 28 shooting, hitting 9 threes. It was the first time in NBA history that one player scored 5-0, plus while a teammate posted 20 or more rebounds and 15 or more assists in the same game. Against Utah. 33 points on 13 of 16 shooting, 81% from the field, with 15 rebounds and 12 assists, and they were still down 13 inches the fourth before he helped drag them back. The Golden State game, 25 points, 15 rebounds, 8 assists in a second half blowout. Now, Jokic has been questioned this season. After coming back from his knee injury, he was shooting poorly for Jokic, that is, and his turnover numbers spiked. He called himself inconsistent, in his own words. But what's happened over these last few games is Jokic recalibrating back to what he was doing before the injury, which was 30 points, 12 rebounds, and 11 assists on 60% shooting. That version of Jokic is every bit as terrifying as anything the league has ever seen from him before. And with Jamal Murray alongside him having the best season of his career, 25.5 points, 7.2 assists per game, career high numbers across the board, he made his first All-Star team. He's had multiple 5-0 point games this season. And he's one of the best volume three-point shooters in the league right now, hitting 42.8% on 7.5 shots per game. He just set the Nuggets franchise record for most three-pointers made in a single season, 222 and counting. On most other rosters in the league, Murray is the clear number one option and the story of the team. Here, Jokic is so dominant that Murray sometimes feels like a secondary headline. But make no mistake, you're dealing with one of the best scoring guards in the league when you face this team. Now, let's talk about what makes this team different from the one that lost to OKC in 7 games last year, because that series exposed some real problems, and this roster was built specifically to fix them. The core issue in that series was simple. Everyone knows that Denver lived and died by Jokic, and they made him pay for it. Double teams, triple teams, constant pressure every time he touched the ball. And because the supporting cast around him was so thin, they literally ran out of men. When your bench drop-off is as steep as Denver's was last year, that's a scheme that holds up over 7 games. This year's team is a direct response to that problem. Tim Hardaway Jr. is shooting 41% from 3 and leads the entire league in bench three-pointers made. Cam Johnson has worked his way into form after injury and a shaky start to the season, and he's now shooting 42.7% from deep. Murray is a legit volume shooter from distance. For the first time since 2020, Denver's three-point rate is actually higher with Jokic on the floor than off. The entire perimeter profile of this roster has changed, which means the scheme that beat them last year won't work anymore. You can't load up on Jokic and ignore the shooters, because Hardaway and Murray will make you pay. You can't go under screens because Jokic will post you up, or find Gordon or Watson cutting baseline. The double teams that neutralized him in the OKC series now become the mechanism that gets Denver open looks from outside. That's a front office making deliberate moves to close the gap. This year, they have actual depth. Peyton Watson has taken a leap offensively. Christian Braun, Bruce Brown, Jonas Valanciunas as a real backup who can score and rebound. Spencer Dinwiddie providing shooting and defense off the bench. Hardaway as a genuine offensive weapon in the second unit. These are players who can contribute in a playoff rotation. Denver pushed OKC to 7 games last year without any of this. The question that should be making the rest of the Western Conference genuinely nervous is, what does a fully healthy version of this roster with real depth and real perimeter shooting do to a team that tries to run the same game plan? Now, the one thing that I want to be straight about is the defense. On the season, Denver ranks 21st in defensive rating at 116.2. But since the All-Star break, they've improved to a more respectable 113.9, which ranks 15th in the league during that period. But the single most important piece of context on Denver's defense is this. With Aaron Gordon on the floor, their defensive rating is 108.9. That would rank 2nd in the entire NBA. Without him, it drops to 117.1, a 9-point swing from one player. Their defense doesn't necessarily have a system problem. It's more of an availability problem. Gordon has missed 44 games this season. When you understand that, the defensive rating becomes less of a red flag. The history matters here too. In their championship run, Denver's regular season defensive rating was 113.5, not that different from where they are now. In the playoffs, it dropped to 110.2. When the pace slows down, when rotations shrink to 8 or 9 guys, when they're game planning around one team, this team has shown they can defend at a different level than what the regular season numbers show. But the concern right now is Gordon's health. He sat out the Warriors game as a precaution with calf tightness. A healthy Aaron Gordon is the difference between a Denver defense that can generally compete in a playoff series and one that gets exploited in the paint. Saturday against the Spurs, how Gordon plays and how he moves, that's going to tell us something real. So here's where all of this lands us. The Denver Nuggets had one of the most difficult seasons in the league from a schedule and injury standpoint. 17 back-to-backs, the most of any team in the NBA. Jokic out for a month. Gordon missing over half the team's first 75 games. Watson gone for 6 weeks. A coaching staff learning on the fly with a constantly changing lineup. And through all of it, they're sitting in 4th place in the Western Conference. Are they playing their best basketball right now? No. The defense is still finding its feet. Some of these wins have had some pretty ragged stretches mixed in. The Spurs game this week is a genuine measuring stick, but the pieces are there. Jokic is doing things nobody else on the planet can do. Murray is playing the best basketball of his career. Gordon is close to healthy. Hardaway has been one of the best off-season pickups in the league. And they have a bench now. Real rotation pieces that this team didn't have when they nearly beat OKC in the second round last year. Jokic and Murray are 13 to 1-inch Game 7s. That comes from a specific kind of composure, from knowing what it feels like when everything is on the line and finding a way to still be standing at the end. The record this year told one story. The close losses, the back-to-backs, the injuries, the schedule, they tell a completely different one. And the version of this team that's starting to emerge right now, with Jokic in this kind of form, that's a team nobody wants to see in the playoffs. The rest of the Western Conference is about to be reminded of what this organization actually looks like when it's whole. So that's the real story of Denver's season. Not the record, not the defensive rating, not the inconsistent label attached to them. The injuries, the schedule, the close losses without the right players. And now, the team that's slowly putting itself back together at the right time of the year. So what do you think? Are the Nuggets starting to look dangerous again? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this one, and check out one of these on your screen now.